An update on the Eclipse reel mower with the Briggs 5S. Here's the 5S. In the last video you saw it running. I did get it started. I had it running. There were some issues with the carburetor and the fuel tank. The carburetor has a small suction tube. The screen was missing off the end of it, and this is the smaller size suction tube. This is an old original pulsajet carburetor, and in a future video I'm going to plan on showing you the upgrade that I've learned from watching 805 Road King video about upgrading the size of the suction tube. Apparently there was somebody commented that the tubes were enlarged. It was a retrofit that Briggs recommended. There you can see the two side by side. This is one I procured, and I'm going to drill out the bottom side suction tube. The center hole is where the suction tube goes. I'm going to drill that out and press in the new suction tube. One of the other problems was that the gas tank was full of rust and crud, and as you can see, it's clean, pretty darn clean. I used the square nut method. There's a whole bag of square nuts that I got. They've been cleaned, and I strapped it onto the side of my zero turn that I used to cut my 2-acre lot. It worked like a charm. It took about an acre to clean it out. It's a fantastic method of doing it. What's nice about this fuel tank is there's no dents in it. There's plenty of thickness left on it. For those of you that don't realize, there's what appears to be some rivets on this. There's one here and there's one over here. There's actually a steel plate that's riveted to the bottom side because these two holes are where the carburetor attaches to the fuel tank. The carburetor actually holds the fuel tank in position. Yes, somehow the tank got dented before I got it. I straightened it out as best I can. I may do other work to it. The fuel cap was leaking a little bit, and it was all full of rust. And I dug out the gasket and pulled the cap apart. I'm going to have to cut a new gasket for it, but that's not a big deal. So that's going to be in a future video. Another thing is I've been working on this, on the Eclipse itself. As I said, I did have it running, but there was an issue with the clutch not working properly. And it turned out that this pin right here, this is the pivot pin for the clutch assembly. And that was frozen in this casting. This is the arm that actuates the clutch. When there's a rod that attaches onto here and it pulls back and it engages the clutch. And this is an assembly. This arm is riveted onto this casting, and that's the pivot on this pin, and it was frozen. The pin was moving in the pivot block. There's a pivot block down in this location that runs along a jack shaft, and it's set screwed onto the jack shaft, and then this set screw holds this pin into position. So sorry about my finger pointing, but I'm looking at this through the viewfinder of my phone. So anyway, I took the entire jack shaft apart and was able to get this arm out, and then I worked that pin loose, lubed it up, put it back together. It functions. I did have this thing cutting, but like I said, I was having problems with the engine. It was running very lean. You could tell that it was running very lean. It would cut out on higher loads. So that's why I'm doing the carburetor. I've actually had the bottom tank off, the oil tank, cleaned that. It was pretty much spotless on the inside. The engine runs well. It does smoke a little bit, but I'm not sure if that's from the oil that I dumped down in there or what. We'll see as it goes by. In another turn of events, this thing showed up. This was given to me. This is a Clinton. This is a Clinton A300. So it's missing a fuel tank, although there is a fuel tank over there. Although that's not for this tank or for this engine, but it should fit. The biggest problem is the carburetor is an absolute mess. I had it apart. I soaked it in cleaning fluid, as I call it. I like to use kerosene for an initial soak. Kerosene tends to loosen stuff up. But the biggest problem is that the water came in here and it went into the intake side, and the intake area inside the block is covered with rust. The valve has been freed up somewhat. I think I'm going to end up having to blast it with something, perhaps walnut shells, I'm not sure. For those of you that don't know Clintons, this particular engine has 2 camshafts. The intake is on this side and the exhaust is on this side, and there's actually 2 cams that run inside of there. I've never used a Clinton before. I know very little about them. The best part is it's an F engine, meaning that it was free. So if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3. Now what is it? Anyway, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this quick little update. Let's do a money shot. Thanks, guys.